So we have a 34-year-old man who has hypoglycemia and elevated C-peptide. The importance of C-peptide with respect to hypoglycemia is that if the C-peptide is elevated, then it means that the patient's endogenous insulin is also elevated. Okay, so C-peptide is a cleavage product when insulin is being produced by the beta islet cells in the pancreas. So that will be co-secreted with insulin from the pancreas. So if the patient's endogenous insulin is elevated, then C-peptide accordingly will be proportional to that elevation in insulin. Whereas if you have a patient who has hypoglycemia and the C-peptide is low, okay, then that indicates exogenous insulin. So surreptitious insulin injection, they classically can give you a pharmacist. They'll say the guy works as a pharmacist. Truthfully, way too easy, way too buzzy. They don't have to say that, nor will they. But that's just your textbook example situation of someone who's injecting. Now, students fuck this question up because I'll tell you how this is a gotcha question. Because if you have hypoglycemia and elevated C-peptide, most students initially say, OMG, insulinoma, right? And you could do CT of the abdomen to visualize the tumor. In reality, that's the wrong answer because the first thing you have to do is check for serum hypoglycemics. Serum hypoglycemics, that term refers to type 2 diabetes meds such as sulfonylureas, which are insulin secretagogues. So when we have insulin secreted by the beta islet cells, we are going to have ATP-gated potassium channels that close. Potassium can't leave the cell depolarizes. Calcium influxes, enters the cell, and then the vesicles of insulin leave the beta islet cell. Okay, that's the mechanism for endogenous insulin secretion. Sulfonylureas are going to close that ATP gated potassium channel without the need for ATP. So potassium builds up in the cell, calcium influxes, insulin is released. Okay, so that's what insulin secretagogues do. Okay, serum sulfonylureas such as glyburide, okay, glipizide. So these drugs, if a patient is taking sulfonylurea, not injecting insulin, but taking sulfonylurea, then insulin levels will be high and C-peptide levels will be high, okay? So you have to check for serum sulfonylurea levels or serum hypoglycemic levels before you jump on doing a CT of the abdomen, which will give the patient 8 years of background radiation, okay? So it's actually do no harm, non-maleficence. You don't want to do harm to the patient, okay? So this is a gotcha question. Really fucking easy if you've seen this question before. So a fraction of students would probably see this question, just instantly be like, oh, haha, like obviously it's check serum hypoglycemics, but most students, particularly first-year med students, will choose CT of the abdomen looking for the tumor. And then the other answers, such as check serum HbA1c, that's for diabetes, unrelated, pancreatic venous sampling, I just added that in there miscellaneously to be an asshole. Urine dipstick for glucose and protein, same deal. I mean, I'm just throwing in distractor answers. I should also mention this, the pineapple juice reversing the clinical signs. If there's insulin hypersecretion, it can cause what's referred to as Whipple triad. So Whipple triad is number 1, hypoglycemia, which the patient has. Number 2, signs of hypoglycemia, which could be tremulousness, tachycardia, diaphoresis. And then number 3 is mitigation of those signs / a return to normalcy with a meal. Okay, so you give glucose and then it reverses its clinical signs. So this patient has Whipple triad. Okay, that's worth noting. Now I say number 3 is reversal with a meal. The USMLE can be really fucking slick where even if you know Whipple triad, like I just described it, they can give number 3 as rather than reversal with a meal, they can tell you it gets worse between meals. It's like, ooh, wow, right? It gets worse between meals. Like that just means it's the same thing as getting better with a meal. But that can actually weirdly be confusing. So your take-home point, once again, just check for serum hypoglycemics such as sulfonylureas, glyburide, glyphosate, um, before you start chasing whether the patient has an insulinoma. Okay, that's it.